Joining us right now to talk about that is America First action-packed senior advisor and spokesperson, former White House press secretary, and author of the book, The Briefing, Politics, the Press, and the President. Sean Spicer is here. Also with us, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner and Fox News contributor, Byron York. Byron just out with a new op-ed. We will talk about that. Good to see you both, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Good morning.
Sean, let me kick it off with you. Your reaction to last night's results.
I got four things. One, I think by the Republicans picking up the Senate, that actually defied history. That's historic. The president, despite the media narrative, was essential to the victory. Three, the party committee, the RNC and America First, were essential to provide the air cover, the ground game, and the data operation that all of these candidates uses. And fourth, and I think more important, and where the delta is between what I just said, is that the green wave hit individual campaigns. Democratic campaigns, one by one, saw money come into their coffers like never before. And I think that's what shook everyone. The party committee did its job. The outside groups did its job with the ads. But the campaigns got flooded with money on an individual basis that in many cases they couldn't compete with.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, when you have a guy like Michael Bloomberg, as much as he put out there, it was...
By the way, that same dark money that Nancy Pelosi just said that they're going to get to the bottom of and get rid of, they had George Soros, Michael Bloomberg, Tom Steyer, all of these folks funding stuff. Dark money is only bad when it benefits Republicans.
Tom Steyer put in $120 million. Michael Bloomberg put in almost $100 million. Byron York, you have an op-ed out tonight. Today it's titled "For Trump, the Challenge of Governing with Dem House, but Full Speed Ahead with GOP Senate." And in it, you write this: "Look for Trump to pursue an even more Senate-focused strategy, a continued string of judicial confirmations, coupled with executive actions that do not require congressional approval, could give the president more accomplishments even if he cannot pass legislation." So tell us more about that.
Well, the big news is the president's party lost the House. So if, spending bills have to originate in the House is a big part of the entire legislative process. So if the president had a legislative agenda going into the second half of his term here, then he's going to have to change that. On the other hand, the one thing that has really united the president, not only with his base, but with the Republican establishment that is sometimes skeptical about him, the one thing that has united them all is their support for the president's judicial nominations, not just the 2 Supreme Court justices, but the record number of Circuit Court of Appeals justices who have been confirmed at this time in the president's term. This is something that's hugely important to the president, hugely important to the base, and it will get easier now that there are going to be more Republicans in the Senate.
Sean, they're the top 2 issues for voters, according to the Fox News research. Number 1, health care. Number 2, immigration. The Wall Street Journal editorial points out today that the issue on immigration, that speaking about it the way that he was on the campaign trail, his closing argument was a bust, or it looks like it was a bust. You had all the problems with immigration, a Republican Congress that did not fund the wall, did not starve sanctuary cities on their funding. And then on health care, again, an incoherent message from the GOP that in the Senate couldn't pass the repeal and replace. But again, the idea was the Republicans who were running in the House just didn't say anything, and the Democrats were leading on it. They've got to fix both those issues politically in the next 2 years.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, the Republicans had all branches of government failed to address immigration, which was the president's number 1 thing. He kept talking about building the wall. They've really done nothing on the issue. And on health care, after being in the wilderness for 8 years during Obama, rallying against Obamacare, talking about all of these things that we would do, frankly, to be honest with you, we didn't deliver. Now, if you think about it, we came within, a yard of doing that. We lost by 1 vote in the Senate. But I think that the American people aren't worried about how close you got. They want to know, did you do it? The Democrats now are going to come in and do this. The interesting thing coming out of today, where I look at it, is 2 races start. Number 1, in the immediate is going to be the race for Speaker of the House. Nancy Pelosi right now has got a big problem in her hand. And I said this last night with Cavuto. There's a reason she had everyone on the stage with her. That was a show of force, a show of power to tell all of those newbies that, hey, listen, I run this place. I'm going to be the Speaker. But no, mark my word, it is going to be the next 48, 72 hours are going to be tough to see how she consolidates that power and whether or not, because remember, she's now putting every one of those new people who said, I'd never vote for Nancy Pelosi to make their first vote voting for for Nancy Pelosi and going back on their word. And second, the race for 2020 began today.
Yeah, true. We said that earlier. Yeah, President Trump is tweeting on the midterms this morning, and here's what he just said a moment ago. To any of the pundits or talking heads that do not give us proper credit for this great midterm election, just remember two words: fake news. He tweeted again saying this: if the Democrats think they are going to waste taxpayer money investigating us at the House level, then we will likewise be forced to consider investigating them for all of the leaks of classified information and much else at the Senate level. Two can play that game. And this is what I mentioned earlier. The fact that he's got more seats in the Senate and he's going to have a new AG, he'll get right back at them and investigate them as they're trying to investigate him.
Yeah, but these aren't just seats in the Senate, right? What people have got to remember is that for many of these folks, Ted Cruz included, look at how tight that race. They owe their seat to him, right? So you look at Montana, you look at Florida, places that he went all in.
Oh,
these people understand. Yep. It's not just that they won. They know that if he's going to ask them to do something, that he has resonated with that base that got him elected, and they're going to make sure that they do, fulfill the agenda and the issues and the priorities that he has. So it's one thing to win it. It's another thing to win it the way he did,
Byron,
which means those guys are going to be loyal.
Byron, go ahead, jump in.
Well, one thing to remember about this is a lot of the progressive stars who were being touted in the Democratic Party before these elections did not do so well. Beto O'Rourke in Texas, and Andrew Gillum in Florida, and Stacey Abrams in Georgia. Not all congressional seats, of course, but some of the progressive stars did not do that well. You did not hear Nancy Pelosi talk about impeachment last night. I would be shocked to hear her talk about it anytime soon. She used the word accountability, which is kind of code for a lot of subpoenas. But there is going to be a debate inside the Democratic Party in the House about how far to go against the president on all this, because they realize that their voters may not be on board for all this. There was an exit poll result last night that showed a majority, 54% of those surveyed said that the Russia investigation was politically motivated. And that's what Adam Schiff is all about.
Yeah.
Do the Democrats want to just go all in, get up front on that right now?
If I can
Not
tweak.
sure.
No kidding, it was politically motivated. I mean, give me a break. It's been 2 years. Go ahead.
If I can tweak one thing Byron said, it's not going to be a debate. It's going to be a downright food fight wrestling match. This progressive wing of the Democratic Party that got elected last night is not here to play footsie. They want to impeach the guy. They want to go after him.
On what, Sean?
What are
they impeaching him on?
That has
Last I checked, this is still America. What is it?
It has nothing to do with facts. It just has to do with the fact that they've been saying it so long. And here's what's going to happen. You understand, Nancy Pelosi, as left-wing as she is, politically is savvy enough to understand that that would undermine and doom any chances they had of A, maintaining their majority for 2020, and B, assuring Trump's re-election in 2020.
Yeah,